Picture this. You're having a normal day. Maybe you're at work, maybe you're with your family, and then out of nowhere, someone says something. Maybe it's your boss criticizing you in front of everyone. Maybe a friend says something that just hits wrong. And in that moment, your face goes red. Your heart starts racing. You say something you immediately regret, and then 5 minutes later, you're sitting there thinking, why did I do that? Why didn't I just stop? We've all been there, every single one of us. And here's the thing, the people who seem calm, the people who seem in control, the people you look at and think, wow, nothing ever gets to them, they're not different from you. They didn't win some kind of emotional lottery. They just learned one skill that most of us were never taught, the power of not reacting. Today, we're talking about emotions, self-control, and why pausing before you respond might actually be one of the most powerful things you can do in your personal life, in your professional life, and honestly, in your English learning journey too. Hey everyone, welcome back to Real World English, the podcast where we talk about real life in real English. I'm Hannah.
And I'm Fred. And okay, Hannah, that intro was kind of intense. I feel like I need to take a deep breath before we even start.
That was the point, Fred. I wanted people to feel it, like really feel that moment of, ugh, I said the wrong thing again.
No, yeah, it totally worked. I was genuinely sitting here going, oh yeah, last Tuesday.
Oh, what happened last Tuesday?
Nothing happened. We're moving on.
Okay. So today's topic, the power of not reacting, emotional self-control. And I think this is one of those topics that sounds really simple on the surface, but when you actually try to do it,
It is incredibly hard.
right? It's so much harder than it sounds.
So let's start here. Why do we react in the first place? Like, where does that impulse come from?
Okay, so this is actually pretty interesting from a science point of view. When something stressful or upsetting happens, your brain basically goes into, and this is a phrase English speakers use a lot, fight or flight mode. And if you're learning English, fight or flight means your body's automatic response to danger or stress. Your brain is like, emergency, react now, figure it out later.
Right, and the problem is our brains are still kind of wired for like ancient times. You know, when the danger was a tiger, not your coworker sending a passive-aggressive email.
Exactly. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a tiger and a bad email, apparently.
Apparently not. So what happens is you get this rush of emotion, anger, embarrassment, fear, and your first instinct is to just let it out, say something, do something.
And sometimes that feels really satisfying in the moment, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like you snap back at someone and there's this 1 second where you feel powerful, I guess. Like you stood up for yourself.
And then 5 minutes later, the regret kicks in.
The regret always kicks in. Ugh, always.
So this is what psychologists call, and I love this term, an emotional hijack. Your rational thinking brain kind of gets hijacked, taken over by your emotional brain, and you're no longer in control. The emotion is in control.
And by the way, if you're learning English, to hijack something literally means to take control of something by force. Like you've probably heard of plane hijackings. But we use it figuratively too, for emotions, for conversations, like he hijacked the whole meeting. Means he took it over completely.
That's such a good one. Hijacked, yeah.
So what's the solution? Is it just suppressing everything, like pretend you don't feel anything?
No, and this is actually a really important distinction because a lot of people confuse not reacting with not feeling, and they're completely different things.
Okay, say more about that.
So, not reacting doesn't mean you become a robot. It doesn't mean you bottle everything up. And to bottle something up, by the way, means to keep your emotions hidden inside, like you're pushing them into a bottle and screwing the lid on tight. That's actually really unhealthy.
Yeah, bottling things up tends to make them explode eventually, like a shaken up soda can.
Exactly. Great image. So, not reacting is more about creating a gap, a pause between the thing that happens to you, the trigger, and your response.
The gap. I like that. So it's not that you don't feel angry or hurt or whatever. You feel it. You acknowledge it. You just choose what to do next.
Exactly. Viktor Frankl, he was a really famous Austrian psychiatrist. He had this idea that between a stimulus and a response, there is a space, and in that space is your power and your freedom.
That's actually really profound. A stimulus, meaning the thing that happens to you, and a response, meaning what you do about it. And the space in between is where you actually have control.
Right, and the goal is to make that space bigger, to stretch it out.
So, how do you actually do that in real life, not just in theory?
Okay, so one of the most practical things, and I know this sounds almost embarrassingly simple, is just to pause before you speak. Like, literally, take a breath, count to 3 in your head, just wait.
And even just that little pause can completely change what comes out of your mouth.
Totally. There's actually this old saying, and it's one of those pieces of advice that sounds like a cliche, but is genuinely useful. You can't unsay something. Once the words are out, they're out. You can apologize, you can explain, but you can't take them back.
I mean, that's so true. Like, everyone has a memory of something someone said to them years ago that still stings, still hurts, even if that person forgot they said it 5 seconds later.
Words stick. They really do. And I think that's why not reacting, or at least not reacting immediately, is such a powerful skill.
Okay, so another thing I've heard about is this idea of naming your emotions. Like, instead of just being swamped by an emotion, and swamped is a great word, by the way, it means completely overwhelmed, like being flooded with water. You actually stop and label what you're feeling. I am feeling angry right now. I am feeling embarrassed.
Yes, and there's actual brain science behind this. When you name an emotion, it activates a different part of your brain, the more rational thinking part, and it literally reduces the intensity of the emotion. It's called affect labeling in psychology.
So basically, putting words to your feelings helps calm them down.
Exactly, which is kind of beautiful, actually, because it means that language literally has the power to help you regulate your emotions. And for English learners especially, building your emotional vocabulary in English is so useful, not just for fluency, but for real life.
Oh, that's such a good point. Like in English, there are so many words for different shades of being upset. You can be annoyed, irritated, frustrated, furious, livid, and they all mean slightly different things.
Right, and being able to identify which one you actually feel and name it precisely, that gives you so much more control.
Okay, let's talk about real situations, because I think theory is great, but let's make this practical. What are some situations where not reacting is really, really hard?
Oh, so many. I think the big ones are criticism, especially public criticism, when someone points out your mistake in front of other people.
Oof, yeah, that one is brutal.
And there's this instinct to just defend yourself immediately, like, no, wait, let me explain. Actually, you're wrong. The context was. And sometimes that's the right move. But sometimes the smarter thing, the more emotionally intelligent thing, is to just pause, take it in, and say something like, I hear you. Let me think about that.
I hear you. That's such a good phrase, actually. It doesn't mean you agree, it just means you're listening, you're present, you're not shutting down.
And for English learners, if you ever feel put on the spot, meaning you're suddenly in a situation where everyone's looking at you and you feel pressured to respond, I hear you. Let me think about that. Or, that's a fair point. Let me come back to you on that. Are brilliant phrases to buy yourself time. You're not running away, you're just being thoughtful.
Buy yourself time. I like that. To buy time means to create a little extra space, whether it's seconds, minutes, or days, so you can make a better decision.
Exactly. What other situations, Fred?
I think social media. Oh man. The internet makes not reacting basically impossible by design, right? Like everything is built to make you react immediately. The angry face button, the reply button sitting right there.
And there's even this expression, don't feed the trolls. A troll online is someone who says provocative, mean, or ridiculous things just to get a reaction. And the advice is don't react, don't engage, because reacting is exactly what they want.
Not feeding the trolls. I love that the internet gave us that idiom.
It really did. And it's basically the same principle, that gap between stimulus and response. Except online, that gap has to be even bigger because everything moves so fast.
Okay, here's a question for you, Hannah. Do you think not reacting can ever be taken too far? Like, is there a situation where you should react?
Oh, absolutely. And this is really important. We're not saying become passive. Passive means just accepting everything without pushing back. Not reacting doesn't mean being a pushover. And a pushover is someone who lets other people walk all over them, never stands up for themselves. The goal is a response that comes from a calm, clear place, not from a moment of blind emotion. So if someone crosses a boundary, if something genuinely unfair is happening, you absolutely should speak up, but you'll do it so much more effectively if you've taken that breath first.
It's the difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is automatic, emotional, often impulsive. Responding is intentional, chosen.
Yes, I love that distinction, reacting versus responding. And honestly, the more you practice that pause, the more natural it becomes. Like any skill, you build it over time.
It's like a muscle, right?
It's exactly like a muscle. Self-control is literally like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Although, and this is the slightly annoying part, muscles also get tired. Like if you've been making decisions all day, if you've been holding yourself back all day, your self-control kind of wears out by the evening.
Yes, and this is why people make worse decisions at night, why you snap at your family when you get home even though your day went fine. You've used up your emotional energy.
So self-care isn't just fluffy advice. It actually matters for emotional regulation. Getting enough sleep, taking breaks, not overloading yourself.
Completely. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And that's another one for English learners. You can't pour from an empty cup. It means you can't give or help or stay calm when you yourself are completely depleted, completely empty and exhausted.
That is such a relatable concept.
Right? Everyone has felt that.
Okay, so if we're going to wrap up the main conversation, what's the big takeaway here? What do we want people to actually walk away with?
I think it's this. You are not your emotions. You feel them, but they don't have to control you. And that gap, that tiny, powerful space between what happens to you and how you respond, that gap is something you can train. You can grow it, and it changes everything.
And it's not about being cold or robotic or suppressing who you are. It's about being the most intentional, clear version of yourself, especially in hard moments.
Beautifully put, Fred.
I have my moments.
Good do. Okay, before we wrap up completely, let's go into our... All right, it's time for our words and phrases segment. This is where Fred and I go back through the episode and pull out some of the best expressions we used. Words that might be new to some of you or phrases that are really useful in everyday English.
Let's do it.
Okay, first one, fight or flight. We said this early on when talking about how our brains respond to stress. Fight or flight is the automatic reaction your body has when it senses danger. Your heart speeds up, your muscles tense. Basically, your body is getting ready to either face the problem or run away from it. You can use this in everyday English too, like, sorry I overreacted, it was pure fight or flight.
Good one. Next, to bottle something up. This means to keep your feelings hidden inside instead of expressing them, like you push everything down and don't let it out. She never talks about her problems, she just bottles everything up. And the problem with bottling things up is that eventually the pressure gets too much and things explode.
Right, don't bottle it up, people. Okay, number 3, swamped. We used this to mean completely overwhelmed by emotion, like you're drowning in it. I was so swamped by anxiety that I couldn't think straight. But by the way, swamped is also super common in everyday English to mean really, really busy. Like, sorry I haven't called, I've been totally swamped at work.
Ooh, good point. Same word, two slightly different uses. Both mean overwhelmed, one by work, one by emotion.
Exactly. Okay, number 4, to buy time. Fred, you want to take this one?
Sure. To buy time means to create extra time or delay on purpose so you can make a better decision or prepare better. I didn't know the answer, so I asked a question to buy myself some time. Super useful in presentations, interviews, difficult conversations. Anytime you need a moment to think.
So useful. Number 5, a pushover. A pushover is a person who is very easy to manipulate or control. Someone who never says no, never pushes back, just goes along with whatever anyone wants. Don't be a pushover. It's okay to disagree. It's not a compliment, obviously.
Definitely not. And the last one, you can't pour from an empty cup. This is a really common English expression, and it means you can't take care of others or stay emotionally strong if you yourself have nothing left. If you're exhausted and depleted, you can't give. Remember, you can't pour from an empty cup. Take care of yourself too. I genuinely love this one.
Me too. It's one of those phrases that just lands, you know?
It really does.
Okay, that is a wrap on today's episode of Real World English. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. We really hope this one gave you something to think about, whether it's the English, the emotional stuff, or honestly, both.
And hey, next time something triggers you, try that little pause, that little space, and see what happens.
We'd love to know how it goes. Leave us a comment, share the episode with someone who needs to hear it, and we will see you in the next one.
Take care of yourselves, everyone.